I am sitting here with my bed of nails acupressure mat right behind me, and I've got the pillow on my lower back, and it feels so good. I love, love, love this bed of nails mat. So I had Karina on last episode, and you can check that out. And if you are interested in learning more about this particular acupressure mat and why it is so good and so much better than others, check out Bed of Nails. We will link it in the show notes. And then also, if you decide to buy, use the code Nourished15. That will give you 15% off, and that helps the show. And we really appreciate all the help that you give us with ratings and with linking to our affiliates and any of the products that you get. If you're going to get them, we hope that you will use our links because that helps support the show. Thanks so much for being here. I'm circling back to quantum health for the next few episodes with some of my favorite quantum health friends. And today it's Vanessa Baldwin, who is so much fun. You're going to love listening to her. She's really a fun person. She's a classical homeopath and also certified in quantum health. So, you are going to hear a little bit about her story because she was a teacher and her own health journey brought her to quantum health. And so that's a lot of fun. And if you would leave us some comments, what you think of the episode. If you like the episode, we would love it if you would rate it. That's actually really helpful to us. So I will introduce you to Vanessa. Vanessa, I am so excited to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kelly. I love your show. I listen regularly. So, yeah, very, very thankful. Appreciate it.
Well, I listen to your show too, and we we go back and forth because I think the more of us that are talking about quantum health, the better. Because I don't know about you, but in my work, I often people don't know what quantum means. They don't
Mhm.
know, and I even had marketing people tell me you should really take quantum out of what you're talking about, and I'm like, nah, I really don't want to. So I think I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
I do because I feel the same way. Like a lot of people don't know what quantum is. Even like I'll use the word circadian biology. I feel like that maybe is a little bit better of an understanding, but I really like the word quantum better because of the fact that I'm also a classical homeopath and homeopathy works at the quantum level. So it's like for me, like that's the word that really embodies what I do. But yeah, definitely people don't know what that is. And yeah, I definitely agree. Marketing people are like, yeah, you should maybe like do like weight loss or like chronic fatigue or something like that. But I'm like, that's not what I'm about. It's about the whole being.
Well,
So it's not just like one thing. So yeah, I completely agree. And I was like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do you. And I feel like if people are going to be drawn to you, then they're drawn to you and they're going to want to understand and learn more about what quantum actually means. And I definitely, we have the
yeah.
Quantum Connection podcast. So yeah, I'm not going to take that
Yeah,
away.
exactly, like, you are not gonna change that was what I was gonna say, the podcast name is
Yeah.
that is what you're all about. So, let's talk a little bit about how you came to quantum, and even, like, when you're describing quantum health from
Mhm.
your perspective, kind of how you came to it and how you describe quantum health.
Yeah, quantum health to me is like little habits or a little stimulus that makes a huge impact on your body. Like watching the sunrise makes a huge impact on your hormones, your metabolic, signaling, your circadian signaling, all of that. Or like homeopathy is a stimulus, a medicine that works at the quantum level that has a big impact on the body, on the affects the vital force, the immune system, and then affects the physical, mental, and emotional person. Right. So that's how I view quantum medicine. It's these little things, these little habits, like just even grounding for a few minutes can make such a huge impact on your physiology. And we are electric first. We are electric beings first before we are biochemical beings. So, yeah, that's what quantum means to me. But how I got started in all of this is, of course, I think how a lot of people get started in this kind of
Mm.
field and industry is they get sick or somebody they love gets sick and they try everything under the sun, literally, and they just can't figure it out how to get better. So they eventually keep searching until they find it. And that's my story, but it's my personal story. I was the one who was sick. And my story goes back, I mean, I don't know if you want to say I was born with a low redox or I was born with poor mitochondrial function Or in homeopathy would say, I was born at a low level of health or a weak constitution. Like there's so many ways you could say the same thing, right? But yeah, I was kind of at the age of 5, I developed some chronic health issues then with in regards of bladder infections that just weren't resolving and was
Mhm.
put on long-term antibiotics. So of course, I was raised in a very conventional family. We never did anything holistic, very standard American. So my mom, just followed the doctor's orders, right? Yeah, we're going to put her on long-term antibiotics prophylactically to make sure she doesn't keep getting these, reoccurring bladder infections. And I was on antibiotics for a good 2 to 3 years, from ages like 5 to like 8. So, I mean, I'm sure with everything that you know and everything that I know, the detriment that that did to my gut microbiome and my mitochondria and my body was huge. And of course, it never solved the issue, which is the really sad part is that you put all these chemicals in your body and they really mess with your gut flora and all the things. And it doesn't even solve it. And it's just so unfortunate. And that which makes me so passionate about wanting to help people in another way, especially when it comes to things like that. Like, you don't have to, if I would have known about homeopathy or circadian biology at that time, or my mom would have when I was little, it may have been a tremendous difference in my life from such a young age, So, but again, of course, I didn't realize, that at that age, and she didn't know that. So I dealt with chronic bladder infections pretty much my entire life. And it was this kind of merry-go-round of you have a bladder infection, and then you have to get antibiotics. And then there was the antifungals because the antibiotics actually cause the yeast issue because they have a yeast component in them. I believe it's penicillin, the penicillin that it is causing the yeast issue. Anyway, so it was this constant merry-go-round, like literally my entire life. And over the years, I also developed obesity, tons of metabolic issues and hormonal issues. And eventually, over time, autoimmunity started taking in. So I developed Raynaud's, which I don't know if you know that one. It's your fingers kind of go yellow and numb, and out in the cold is my trigger. I still deal with it here and there, but it's definitely less frequent. I had alopecia areata, huge bald spots in my head, like all over. I went for cortisone injections for that every month, which was like, man, when you just don't know, you don't know. And I was like, what was I doing to my body? And again, it didn't solve the issue.
Right.
Like, it would just make the holes in my head move to like a different location. Like, I was like, okay, so we move the inflammation from this spot now to this spot. Like, it just never solved the issue. That's completely resolved, which is awesome. Um, and then the biggest thing that developed for me was a diagnosis of interstitial cystitis, which is a really tough condition to live with. I developed another bladder infection, and this time I went and got antibiotics, and the antibiotics did not solve it at all. I felt exactly the same. And I'm like, okay, now what? It's like, oh my God, what do you do? Like, it's such a scary place to be. So they of course recommended urogynecologists and all that. And I went through the whole dance and tried all their allopathic medicines and really never got better. But I did notice a hormonal component. And then the pandemic hit and stress level was through the roof. We live in New York, Long Island. So I'm a teacher here. Well, I was a special ed teacher for a very long time, 15 years. And oh man, it was very stressful here. Schools were shut down, everything was shut down. So there's a stress fear component there building in, which doesn't help someone with an autoimmune issues. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I was deemed to be a virtual teacher when we wound up going back. They said, you're going to be a virtual teacher. We're going to put you in. So now can you imagine, Kelly? I got the 3 screens, literally 3 screens to virtually teach. I go into my school under, the crappy lighting, of course. And there's no students. My students are all virtual, and I'm in front of 3 screens. And this is when my Hashimoto symptoms started to develop during
Oh,
that time.
yeah.
I went being, freezing all the time, all the Hashimoto's, the hormone things, joint things were going on, fatigue, all kinds of crazy symptoms that
Right.
I would never connected to that.
Mhm. Right. What about, like, mental? Were you also, like, having the anxiety and the
A little bit of anxiety, but not to a detrimental level.
uh
But there was some because, yeah, the whole pandemic thing, definitely.
well, that, yeah. But just
Yeah,
with Hashimoto's too, sometimes you feel like you're losing your mind. with the Hashimoto's.
Well, it got worse. So
Okay,
yeah,
got worse. Okay.
it did get to that point because what happened was it was like around February of that year, it was time for everybody was there was a solution to the pandemic, right? Okay, everybody's going to go and get something in their arm that's going to solve the issue. And I really being autoimmune, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I need this. This is
Right,
something I really should do." Like I was convinced like this is a good idea for my body.
right.
And after the first one, I mean, oh my God, I had noticed a difference in my body right away. I noticed my breathing was off, and I've never had issues with my breathing before, but I just couldn't take a deep breath. Like I was like, why can't I breathe normally? Like I just feel different. And I honestly didn't really even connect it to that. I was like, oh, it's probably coincidental. I even asked I remember like walking around because you go back to school, like you go get this and then you go back to teaching, right? I'm like, did you notice like your breathing is off? Like I remember asking everybody and they were like, no, we're fine. And I'm like, that's weird. Coincidental, right? This is my mind going. But after the second one, when you go back in 3 weeks and have to do it again,
Right.
my immune system just completely went haywire. I mean, it
Mhm.
was a night and day difference in my body to the point where I had to leave my job.
Right.
That's how bad it was. So when you said anxiety, where'd my anxiety go? My anxiety went to panic attacks,
Uh-huh.
full blown panic attacks, laying on my classroom floor, unable to get up, unable to like move, just totally frozen. Depression, crying, no idea crying. I remember going to colleagues and being like, I'm crying and I don't know why. Like I couldn't make it through Zoom with my students without crying, talking about, who knows what, phases of matter, like nothing that would make you cry. It just was ridiculous. It was just, yeah. And then the joint pain was like literally like all my joints were on fire. Insomnia, heart palpitations was
Yep.
really rough. Like a total mast cell reaction. Like every system in my body, chronic digestive systems, diarrhea. I mean, just everything. And then I got another bladder infection because my immune system was so suppressed, so compromised, so down. And again, antibiotics were not doing what they needed to do. And it was just that bladder infection like literally changed my world because these symptoms were so intense and so strong and nothing was helping it. I mean, going back to even thinking about it is so scary that I even live like that, but it was like this chronic squeezing of the bladder all night long and burning pain. It was just I didn't sleep for months. It was horrific.
Yeah,
So,
horrible. Good news is
good.
you are you're I was gonna say picture of health, but you are definitely moving in a direction of healing and
Oh
health,
yeah.
and honestly, like, I feel like some people, if it doesn't get that bad, you won't find the answer, like, it has to be that bad to
It
find your
does.
way to holistic health, but at some point you did try, like, the whole functional medicine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you've
Yeah.
done all the things.
Oh man, I did all the things. If I went down, I don't even know if I should go down the whole list because I really did all of the things. I mean, out of the box stuff like nutrition response testing, where they like check your arm, like for apply kinesiology. I mean, Reiki, hypnotherapy, all kinds of energy medicine. I was game for anything because yes, I hit extreme rock bottom. You go to all the doctors, nobody can help you, and that's a really scary place. Like I remember leaving
Yeah.
doctors' offices and crying and being like, "Well, what the hell am I supposed to do?" Like,
Right.
you just told me they told me to remove my bladder. Like, I was 37. Like, I was like, "What am I supposed to do?" Like, there was no good solution, and it's such a really scary place to be. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you become desperate. You would do anything. So, yeah, I did all the things, and honestly, functional did not help me at all.
Right.
And I know I'm not trying to say that that's doesn't
Mhm.
help other people and it's a bad way to go, and maybe it works for you, but I just honestly, the more things I found out were wrong with me, I
Yeah.
think the more fear I had and the more anxiety I had about my health. And I was like, oh my God, now I have mold. Now I have parasites and H. pylori and this and that. I'm like, really? But is that really the root cause? No, it's way deeper down below that at the energetic level. That is where you need to make traction. This is not, it doesn't really matter that you have parasites. It doesn't really matter that I have mold. Like, that's not even the point. Like, it's,
I
it's
which is to me is actually the exciting part, is
yeah,
that the way out is actually on the cellular level is pretty simple. You
Yeah.
have to get your ass outside. Like, you have to get yourself in right relationship and in harmony with your natural environment.
Yeah, and I can't believe the difference that it makes. Because one of the things that, of course, let's get to the happy stuff, right? So,
Yeah,
like, one
let's
of
get
my
to the happy, yeah.
this is I'm kind of like it's like a scary doom and gloom place, right? Where I've done everything and nothing works. I actually started following the first person who, taught me about the sun was actually I got into Sarah Kleiner because she also had, interstitial cystitis, and she was doing carnivore, and I dabbled in that, which my body did not like that.
Okay,
It wasn't good for my body, and it depends on the person, right? So,
sure.
but um, yeah, so that's where I kind of started learning a little bit from her, and then I started following Dr. Hunt, learning about ketosis and sunshine, and actually ketosis is not great for my body either. Like, you have to learn and figure out what works for your body.
That's a
Um,
key point. I really want people to take that in. Like,
yeah,
you're following all these people, you're trying to do everything, but you really do have to
mhm.
see what works for you and what resonates for you. I do think there are key things that help everybody, like sunshine. But yeah, especially when it comes to nutrition, I think it's really more individualized than I ever would have thought.
Yeah, and the problem is that you get so like I know I can be dogmatic. I will say it right now, like, oh yeah, this is gonna keep working. Just do the carnivore harder. Meanwhile, Kelly, I had chronic water diarrhea on carnivore and I lost my period. I'm like, this is a sign. And I was working with a nutritionist who did not like say to stop. And it's like these are the things. I mean, God bless her soul. Maybe she just didn't like really think that this is really detrimental. But these are the things where you have to stop and listen to your body and say, is this really working for me? Or
Right,
am I just doing this because oh, it worked for somebody else?
right.
You really have to stop and think about that. And my body does better with some carbs. It needs seasonal carbs. Like it has to have it. Because yeah, I just that's how I function better. So I'm just
All
like, you got
right, yeah, good to know. Right, so you started following some people, you're trying some things. What started helping? Like
the first thing was sunrise. Like, I started doing sunrise every day and being outside grounded because
Mhm.
I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" Like, that sounds like an easy thing to do, you know? And I would sit outside in my like, bundled up because it was like a winter time when I started, so it wasn't an easy time to start doing this, and I would sit outside and I would didn't know everything then, but I would, like, do some meditation or try to, like, sit and kind of, like, orient to my surroundings, like, that kind of thing, and just hang outside or take like a slow walk or something like that. And that really, really helped my chronic insomnia because that was one of my worst symptoms. I would literally dread the nighttime because the nighttime would equal I can't sleep, there's no distraction, high pain. So that was always like a scary time for me. So just being able to fall asleep without having to take melatonin or L-theanine, which were my go-tos in the middle of the night if I just
Mhm.
couldn't get myself to calm down, which I just threw out a couple months ago because I never use them anymore, which is so great. But yeah, I that really made a huge impact. And then I got into blocking artificial light at night eventually, and I was like, wow, that made a huge impact. My sleep not only just was 100% better, like really, it really made a huge impact. And then I took it further with turning off Wi-Fi at night, also a huge impact. And I definitely think there's a major component with people who have, say, mast cell histamine issues and non-native EMFs that's not being told enough to that community because it's dehydrating. There's a correlation between this histamine and the hydration. And then when you're on these devices so much, you are constantly dehydrating your cells and stimulating that nervous system and all of that. So yeah, I think there's this huge connection there that's really, really important. But that made a huge impact to the point where I took it even further and made my husband wire the whole house with Ethernet, which has been great. So yeah, that's helped a lot. And I'll notice it. Like I will notice like burning in my abdomen, say, like if I'm surrounded by like we have an RV, we travel a lot. So the kids have phones that's kind of more of a hot spot in a non-native environment, and I'll notice more symptoms. So like I am sensitive, so it definitely is helpful to you know mitigate those things hugely. So that's been a big benefit to me. And of course, nutrient dense diet, which I was moving towards anyway, quality water, grounding, all of the things, seasonal eating, all
Mhm.
that I'm sure has made a huge, huge impact. I mean, I eat probably one of the cleanest diets, like, out of anybody I know in the like, except for people in the quantum world who are doing the same things, but, like, most people, like, I eat a really clean diet, like, it's all organic from a, Amish farm that's local, it's yeah. And,
Mm,
but I'll be honest with you though, Kelly, like, so even though I was doing all of the things circadian wise and living this like
mhm.
quantum perfect life,
Uh-huh.
I
Yes.
really I really was doing like everything. I was still, the bladder stuff and even some depression come up, anxiety would come up. It was still really struggling. So,
Homeopathy. That's where the
homeopathy too.
homeopathy, and I think
Homeopathy too,
this
rest
is what's really important because then when I do think people like, "I'm doing all the things." Well, first of all, they think they're doing all the things, but then when you dig in a little bit, I don't know if this is your experience with working with people, you realize there are some things they could tweak. But there if you've had a especially if you were on antibiotics for years
ever.
and years yeah, like, ever, but I also most of us that are the sensitive types that get really we have the autoimmune stuff, we have all of those things. If you look, we were put on antibiotics really early in childhood. I had the chronic ear infections and was put on that all the time. We had it probably I would guess I too was born with just weaker mitochondria. Like there wasn't a lot of the inputs that we needed in childhood. And there enough to keep me functional and moving forward. I was outside enough and barefoot enough, I think. And through the summers, I think I stored up because I was really into sun. But but I think a lot of us had issues that when and then we did conventional medicine and it layered in. And so we can't expect for all the quantum strategies, which are amazing, do help shore us up, but there's still some underlying cellular healing that has to happen, which is why I too have turned to classical homeopathy because you get to see what's left though. And you're like, okay, of course for you it's bladder. It's been bladder for you forever. For me,
Yeah.
it's headaches. It's been headaches for me since early on,
Mhm.
you know? But it's a much more hopeful stance than ever before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there was even while doing some of the quantum stuff, like
Yeah.
okay, my energy was better, my sleep was better, my mood was mostly better. I could live my life. I wasn't in this like, horrible state where I couldn't do anything, but
Mhm.
it was really still a lot of hard moments like every day. So yeah, I mean, classical homeopathy has definitely been a huge, huge support, and it's ongoing, like you said. Like so, people who like sensitive, like you said, born in these more weaker constitutions, that's really all inherited generationally. Like it's just what it is. Like you get your microbiome and your mitochondria from your mom and your grandmother, and I look back and all the same things they got, I got. You know what I mean? Like, but I just have it at a much deeper level. And the more suppression that I did just makes that deeper. It makes me even think your ear infections, now headaches, it's just deeper. Like that
Right,
just makes sense. Like to
right.
me. So like we suppress things, they go deeper into the body, and that's just what happens. And again, like I want to reiterate what you said, you can't expect like that it's just going to heal overnight. And even with homeopathy, like I still have symptoms, like I still have things, but it's just like they don't overtake my life anymore and I'm in a much better place. And I mean, much better, but it takes time. Like it takes, unfortunately, classical homeopathy is a kind of a slow medicine in the way that you're rebuilding your immune system and your vital force. And because your body is doing the work, it takes a long time to like rebuild all of that.
Mhm.
And when we're younger too, like you said, like I had the sun and the sunshine outside and all that and the grounding, but kids are just way more resilient because their mitochondria just function way better. That's like I see that in my own kids. Like I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Right.
they bounce back from things faster than we can because they're younger.
Right, that and they do spend more time in delta waves, brain waves, which is more
Mhm.
regenerative and rejuvenating. I mean, so there are a lot of reasons as we age and we pile on things, but and I know for me, the homeopathy, I had to really I got it. I was like, "Yes, I'm on board," but I still found myself habitually kind of, you know, if you have, because you want to get a cold, or, when I get a sore throat and I'm taking homeopathy, I'm in homeopathy treatment, that's a good sign. But I
Yeah.
still found myself like, well, do I need cough medicine? Like, I mean, just like, it's so ingrained in us, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
do all the things. So if you and I, who do all the things and have studied this stuff, because when you are feeling awful, or your loved one, or whatever brings you, once you make it to quantum health and you're studying applied quantum biology, like, you're going deep. Like, there's no way back. You are going in, and then once
True.
you go in, there's no turning around once you start seeing and things start making sense, and you're cleaning your brain so you're able to
Mhm.
think clearer about things, and then things start improving enough to where you just keep going in this direction. And yet, I still had some old programming.
Oh, yeah. It happens that for me too. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, should I look? Maybe I need to scan. Like, maybe I need to just double check this." I'm like, "No, you don't." Like, but that's why we need support and coaches too. Like, I really like, just because you're a healer doesn't mean you don't need support. Like, and I think that's so important for people to know. Like, I still have a homeopath. We
Mhm.
have a good relationship. When I'm in a mood, like when I need support, I contact her, or I contact other coaches and people that I need in my life to like bring me back down to earth and be like, "Yep, you're gonna be fine." Like, it's just we need that. We need that support too, because we're human, and that programming, like you said, it runs really, really deep. And
It
I grew most of my life, what, till 37 years old. I grew up in a very conventional, you know, mindset. You go to the doctor, being sick is bad. Fevers are bad. Like, of course, as a homeopath, I know it's the complete opposite, now. I'm like, this is really good when you get an acute. Like, this means that your immune system is finally starting to come back online and respond in an appropriate way. You should get a fever. I think back often to the fact that when I was 5 and I had bladder infections, my symptoms weren't fever. I didn't get fever then, which is a sign of a low level of health. I just got, incontinence and, frequent urination. But my body wasn't strong enough then to do that, the right response where it should mount a fever and burn up the pathology itself. That's the fever's job. So, I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard for people to wrap their head around it. We need a whole paradigm shift, like a whole, shift to know that. I try to post those things on my Instagram, like, "Yep, getting an acute is a good thing. Fevers are a good thing." Like, it's not a badge of honor to say, "Oh, I never get sick." Actually, that means that your immune system is probably not responding appropriately. Like, you
Right.
should, like, once a year develop a strong acute where because everybody's going to come in contact. You're going to come in contact with pathogens, but whether or not your body responds in the appropriate way is the question. Because yeah, like once a year, your body should get that fever and kind of like burn things up and then move on. Like, you should just have a day or two where you're not feeling great and then move on. Things shouldn't linger, like that's not a sign of good health. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's definitely a mind shift. It's
Yes.
a deep mind shift, and I'm really interested in the suppression of emotion and
Oh,
how
huge.
deep that goes and how much that affects our health. And to
Mhm,
me, once you have a symptom, once your body is showing symptoms, your body's already doing its best to try and
mhm.
heal and manage that. So we look at symptoms as, well, we used to, right? Like, not we, but like most people look at symptoms as a problem to solve, as opposed to looking at it as this beautiful communication, and your body's doing the best that it can, and it needs some help and support there.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. It's always trying to protect you. It's always
Always.
trying to protect you from deeper pathology. That's why the whole autoimmunity thing, the body attacking itself, always drives me nuts. And it never resonated with me. I'm like, my body is never going to trying to harm itself. It's trying to keep it alive. It's trying to do everything to protect it. Those symptoms, that's what they're there for. So I always think of it as the body's not attacking itself, it's attacking, or I don't even like the word attacking, but it's like there's something that it's trying to fix. It's just something that it's trying to
Right.
rebalance and return to homeostasis all on its own. Like, I don't see it that way. But yeah, symptoms are not inherently bad. And I don't think like being symptom free actually is a good sign of health either, because it's like,
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not, and it is hard for people to understand that, but yeah.
Right. And I think if people don't realize that they even have symptoms, there's such a disconnect. Like
Yeah.
they're not even listening to their body to know when they do have subtle things. And
Mhm.
I agree with the autoimmune. We could probably dig in there just a little bit too, because I was
Yeah.
like, wait. To me, that's the body not recognizing. It's like that's the self, small s self, not recognizing big S self. To me, that's as much a
Mm,
spiritual problem as it
yes.
is a physical problem. And I was like, why are we only throwing medicines at this? Like this is something way deeper. It's your whole system trying to say, I'm trying to live in alignment with who you really are, and you are off, and we are light. So if
Mm,
we're not living in that, centered, that place of light within us, then yeah, we're gonna your body's gonna do something to try and fix that, to try and help you.
trying to help you get back into balance, you know? I always say, like, any kind of chronic disease is gonna be multifactorial, right? Always. It's never just one thing. That's never just one trigger, it's never just one root cause, it's many things. But anything chronic, it's always rooted in the mental emotional too. There's always some sort of mental emotional component. Um,
Always.
I
Mhm.
mean, this is I didn't believe that at first, like with myself. I'm like, I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I was like, no, this is all physical. Like I fought that for some time for sure. But no, yeah, it always is. It's just it's never, and I've seen that with clients and I see it, all the time. It is always some sort of mental emotional triggers that are also keeping the body in that place, as well. So, yeah.
Mhm.
But that's the great thing about homeopathy too, is that it works on all levels. It doesn't just treat the physical symptoms. Like, you get treated when you go to a homeopath, you're not getting treated for interstitial cystitis or Hashimoto's or whatever. They're not gonna say, okay, you have that disease, here's your remedy for that. No, they are looking at you, the totality of the person. They're looking at your physical, mental, and emotional symptoms, and they're finding the remedy that's gonna match the energy and frequency of your pathology. And then that's what gets into the subatomical particle levels of the body, and then just kind of like works in like almost like a ripple effect to affect all the levels of your health. So I think that's kind of what I love about homeopathy.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
is that it's working on that deeper level on all the levels. And I don't know if anybody has ever done some classical homeopathy, if they've been to someone that has helped the questions, like my son. I'm used to the questions, so that's fine, but my son was like, "These were really weird questions."
They are. Yeah, because well, that's because homeopathy works on like cures like, right? So
Yeah,
you're gonna take the remedy that matches, your symptom picture. So what they how they found out those, each remedy can cure is by doing these scientific studies, which are called provings in homeopathy. So a healthy individual who doesn't have any chronic disease would take, say, a remedy, say it's pulsatilla, which is a common homeopathic remedy. They would take it, and they would take it every day, and then they would log their symptoms and find out what those symptoms are. So this is how we know what it will cause and what it will cure. So that's why we ask a lot of these kind of strange questions, because those are the we're looking to see if your system picture matches some of those, um, you know, those those symptoms. And the more peculiar and strange,
yeah.
the better. Like that's why when you come to a classical homeopath, tell them all the strange things. Like even though you think it's nothing, and it's not important, like you stick your feet out of the covers or you drool on your pillow or you feel a cold, you feel cold water running down your back. That's such a weird one. Or you sit down and you just pee a little bit. Or like these are like, I mean, you don't think you
I'm
don't
like,
think that
yeah.
these things are important. Or you have constipation but you have zero urge for days. Like these are all really, or you another great one is like you have constipation but you have to lean far back to go to the bathroom. Like there's only some of those symptoms, there's only one remedy that matches with. And then if you give that classical homeopath that, symptom, it's like that's like the magic bullet. I'm like, okay, now I know where we're going here, because yeah, it's the remedy that matches 100%. And it's crazy how often those things will happen. You're like, and you
You
think that
yeah.
that symptom is nothing, but to us,
Right.
like huge, you
That
know?
is, like, the key, right. Or you
Yeah,
think it's just related to, "Well, I've had kids, and so now I pee on myself," like, whatever, that's the way it
yeah,
is. As
yeah.
opposed to realizing that that actually could help that information is helpful.
Yeah. Well, we also normalize things too. Like, oh, it's just normal to,
Oh,
have incontinence because we're older. Like, not really. You know,
yeah,
like,
not really, that's probably not actually, yeah.
yeah. Out of all the things that I've dealt with my bladder, I mean, I've certainly had incontinence, but that's one thing that I don't have anymore. Like, I don't have that issue. Like, it's completely, that's, pretty much healed, so it's pretty amazing. Like, so things, yeah, they can heal. And I did pelvic floor therapy and acupuncture and all that too, it
Mhm.
never really got to that root cause place, unfortunately. So,
Right. And I think that's really the point. So,
yeah.
of the simplest of practices, do you find I would say you and I probably both would say sunrise because you and I both that's where we started. But in
Mhm.
working with people and people do what they're going to do and they don't do it. They just don't do a lot. And trying to make that just okay because everybody is where they are. But
Yeah.
what are the things that you find that are the most helpful for people? The simplest and the most helpful?
Depending on is everything's always individualized, of course. So depending on where they're at, but sometimes I think it's good to start with people with blocking artificial light at night.
Okay.
Because then they could actually get up to the sunrise, so it depends on where they're at. Because some people, like, I'm a total type A. I mean, it's not as probably a surprise to you, right?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
like, you're gonna tell me to get up to see sunrise, I'm gonna do it, but not everybody's like that. So, you know what I mean? So I find that blocking artificial light at night can sometimes help that situation. Like, if we can get that done, the sleep improves, they're up, at an earlier time. Yes, of course, then getting out for sunrise. I also would say if you can tone down your EMF environment, that's great. Like, if that's a possibility, just doesn't have to mean you throw away your phone and you don't ever talk to people like Kelly Ritter on a podcast. Like, we do these things, but you just lessen it. Like, so do I take walks without any electronics? And, like, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like, I think people are afraid of that. Like, oh my God, what if somebody needs me? What is the chances? Like, it's not typical. You
Mhm.
can do 30 minutes outside without your phone. Like, it's so I try to push people to that.
Mhm.
Going out in nature as much as they would like to, being outside as much as they can, grounding, all of that. I find that all really, really helps. And turning the Wi-Fi off at night, I also find really, really beneficial as well for people because they don't realize, even if they're like, I slept okay, like how better it could be. Like, I don't know about you, but I have to say, I do wake up with like kind of chipper and ready to go. And like, I don't know.
Always.
I
I thought I was a good sleeper. So I was
yeah,
like, "No, I'm good." And then
yeah.
when I started implementing all the quantum health strategies, I
Mhm.
really couldn't believe I must have I think I slept hard, but I don't think I had restorative sleep,
Right.
right?
Different.
So my body really wasn't cleaning itself all that well at night because I would still wake up I used that old commercial of the Dunkin' Donuts where he's like, "Time to make the donuts." I used to wake up like, "Oh, time to make" like, it just felt like treadmill of life,
Yeah.
and, I worked really hard on that because I wanted to be a better mom, really is why I worked on that, and it
Mhm.
really wasn't until I started adopting the quantum health strategies that I would wake up genuinely
Mhm.
energized, not, hyper, but almost a little like ready to go. Just
Yeah.
really grounded and clear. I just thought it was amazing. I thought that was the most remarkable thing, actually.
Yeah, I wake up too with a lot of thoughts, like a lot of things,
A
and I'm
lot.
like
Yeah.
like a lot of things, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this," yeah, like, and not in like I said, not in a hyperactive way, just like I just wake up with the ideas. And I also, another thing that's interesting that I always forget to mention is I started dreaming again, which was
Oh, that's
interesting.
huge.
'Cause I wasn't dreaming for a long time, especially when I went through
Mm.
my worst of my health issues, and
Yep.
I mean, forget it, like, and I was on all the pharmaceuticals, I wasn't dreaming, and yeah, I started dreaming again, and I was like, "Wow, I'm dreaming." Like, I think that's really, really huge. And I used to be, like, obsessed with tracking my sleep and all that, and I don't know, I found that to be not beneficial to me. Like, this is where, again, when maybe it's beneficial to you, but, like, you have to, like, see what works for you. I can get obsessive where, like, that's gonna, like, make me, like, if if the Garmin said my sleep wasn't good, I'm gonna stress about it. But meanwhile, I felt fine. So like, just take it off and don't, you know what I mean? This was a while ago, but like this is again, you just gotta learn
Right.
what works for you. So like, I don't know. I know I slept well because I feel good when I wake up in
Y
the morning.
yeah,
That's really
and
all
then
I need to know.
yeah, that's it. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so funny when people are like, "I don't know how I slept." But yeah, dreaming actually is a good sign of mental health too. So we
Mhm.
see deficiencies like B6 and zinc deficiency, particularly B6, people
Mhm.
won't actually dream. And so when your body starts to restore and your gut microbiome is restored, that
Well, that's good.
B6 goes out. Yeah, it's just so it's interesting. Then you dream. But
Well, my
tell me
funny little
why.
doctor did tell me at one time that I had low B6, so
I would concur just based on the fact that you weren't dreaming. Like, you don't even need a big test for that. But
Yeah.
you have kids. So I know
Yeah.
people are like, I'm not turning the Wi-Fi off because
Oh,
the kids are up, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just want you to just mention that you do this even
yes.
with a
Yes,
household full
yes.
of
Well,
children.
so I have 3 boys, and now this was a lot on them because, the me being chronically ill was a lot on them too, like, you know what I mean? And then I was like I was a point in my life when I was so chronically ill that I was not a mom, and that was really hard. Like, I really wasn't a mom. Like, the iPads, this is when before I knew all this, iPads and electronics really became a big part of their lives to a point that I would never have allowed when I was healthier.
Right.
But it's just because I was so sick. So taking that away, not away from them, but like putting more brakes on a lot of that was hard. So I won't lie. So I know that parents are going to meet resistance, but they got used to it. And, I had to explain to them the science. And even my 7-year-old knows, he will say, he understands when I say like the reasons why we block artificial light at night or turn off the Wi-Fi, which we don't even have Wi-Fi now, which the Ethernet goes off. It just has a timer and it goes off. But he will say, "This suppresses my melatonin. This activates my nervous system in the wrong way." Like he understands these things, so I know that kids are receptive and can learn these things. And the younger you start, the better it is because they're more like my 7-year-old is more understanding than my 13-year-old because he has less programming, right? So it makes more sense, right? But yeah, no, I do all these things. So there are just rules and boundaries that they had to come to accustomed to. So switching to Ethernet was a big thing. And there was a few days where we didn't have internet. Can you imagine how we survived?
Yeah. Be awesome. Yeah.
That was like they were like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "You're gonna be fine. We're just rewiring the house." So, but now everybody has Ethernet and ports in their rooms or wherever we need them. They're all over the house. I have one that I can bring outside.
Nice.
It goes off at 10 o'clock at night every night, and no matter what. And that's the cutoff. I would like it a little bit earlier, but that was me being compromising.
Mhm.
Blue blockers are worn at night if they're on their devices. We have incandescents, in the
Mhm.
house. And, even my little guy, I put a red bulb into, he was excited about that. So I was like, yes, score, win. And I
Yeah.
have red in my bedroom and, I have an orange one over here where I'm sitting. Like, so we have strategic lighting that helps out. But yeah, it's possible, and they're all on homeopathy, as well. Like, so like I'm working on reversing all of their other stuff at a deeper level. And yeah, it's tough, like my husband's probably the hardest one to move the needle on because his programming is deeper, he's done these things longer, and I just, you also have to like meet people where they're at and know that you can't force anything. With your kids, you can set boundaries. This is your child, right? But when they're older, you kind of have to meet them where they're at and say, okay, when you're ready, I'm ready. Like that's kind of what I say. When you're ready,
Yeah.
you know the things. Or I also find too that in a person who kind of has this pathology that is more self-harming or just more of destructiveness, and they're not really ready to like make changes in themselves to be better,
Yeah.
that homeopathy can
Is it
light the fire that way. So now, okay, I get on the right remedy and now I'm able to then make the changes in my life that I need to better my
yeah.
health in my life.
Oh,
So it can.
Vanessa, that's such a big point because to know as a practitioner too, there's an art of when
Mhm.
somebody really needs to go actually do some homeopathy first because
Yeah.
they're not able to, and I see that. I don't see people with addiction, but I am in recovery, so, like, with food addiction and addiction, I can see how homeopathy first would be so much more helpful,
Yeah.
for recovery kinds of things, but if especially if people are in that kind of, well, I see people that eat in a way that is self-harming and know it, like, that are kinda stuck in that place. So, it's not that all of the quantum health strategies aren't foundational and don't help,
Oh,
it's
no,
just that
yeah.
you've got some deeper stuff that needs supporting, that's all.
It's just truthfully, in today's day and age, most people do have a lot of deeper stuff just because of all of the layers of suppression, not only that you put on your body, but that your parents and your grandparents have put on their
And
bodies.
great-grandparents, like, it goes way, way back,
And
right?
all the emotional stuff too that they've suppressed. Like, suppressed emotions are a huge trigger for
Yes,
chronic disease, and,
yes,
say your grandmother was abused and suppressed it and never stood up for herself. Unfortunately, that kind of stuff is still kind of lingering in you get that your microbiome literally comes from your mother, you know what I mean? And their
yes,
grandmother. So, like, it's all just passed down, like, so it's all in us. So, I hate to say, like, the society, like, every generation is getting weaker and weaker, but I do feel that. And that really kind of breaks my heart. And I really feel like if we use circadian biology and went back to, like, the basics of,
mhm.
connecting back to nature and real food and all the things, right? Like, that as the foundation, and kind of homeopathy as medicine to help reverse this, like, the world would really be a better place. And throw in some therapy there for everybody too, because I'm like, there's a stigma there too. And I didn't say that part of my journey, but therapy's also been a part of my journey. I've done quite a bit of I've honestly I've seen some not so great therapy.
Right, that happens too, right, yeah.
And I've seen some really great ones. So yeah. But that's been part of my journey too, because, like I said, everything's rooted in the mental emotional as well. But when you're in that, going through a chronic disease, you need support. Like, everybody needs support, and that's okay. And I feel like there's a stigma there that needs to be wiped away. Like, it's okay to need support in your life. You don't have to walk your life alone. Like,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually really important. Like, we're not supposed to do it alone. Yeah, we need that support.
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So, Vanessa, is there anything else that we didn't cover, like, that you really wanted to talk about, or anything that nourishes your body, mind, soul that we
Mm.
didn't
We
touch on?
covered a lot. Yeah,
Yes.
you did a good job.
Oh,
um,
thanks.
yeah, no, connection is so important too. I would say that
Right.
that's huge, like connection with family and people that you love. And I feel like I isolated myself a little bit on my journey too, especially when I went to, like, really restrictive diets and eating at different times all the time, and just, like, missing that connection. Like, I stopped eating out at restaurants, like all these things. Like, I don't know, there's like, yes, food is important and it plays a role, but it's certainly not everything. And our body should be more resilient. And I just feel like there's a there's a bigger piece here that I feel like sometimes people in the chronic health, area and the restrictiveness go to, where they're like, they've got to just be so isolated and so different. And that isolation causes some problems too. So,
Right.
like, I feel like the connection and being connected with people with food and all that is really, really important too.
Yeah.
Just it's I don't know, I felt that throughout my journey. Like, I just went out to dinner with my husband the other night. We went to, like, a nice seasonal restaurant here, which is cool, but do they probably use seat oils? Yes. Will I live? Yes. Like, you kinda, like, live your life, like, and not be, like, so rigid. Like, you gotta let go of that a little bit too. So if you're on a healing
Right.
journey, know that. And also know that things take time, and I really, really believe that no matter what the disease is and how deep it is, that you can definitely make huge traction with living a life with circadian biology principles and homeopathy as medicine. You can make huge, huge traction. And as far as what nourishes my soul, I would say definitely, connection, nature. I love nature. I love being outside. I love traveling. We have an RV, and I love to go to all different places and climb waterfalls and mountains and, like, go I love seeing the world. Like, I love that. So all of that really nourishes my soul too. And yeah, connection with family and food and cooking, like, nourishing meals for my family, and eating with them. That's pretty nourishing too. So lots of things.
Right, right. I love that, and I resonate with so much of that. That's why I think I always like when you're on the quantum tribe calls, not that we're on them that much anymore, but I'm like, "Oh, Vanessa and I have a lot in common." A lot
I
of us.
love to go on those. I wish I could get on them all the time. It's hard, but yeah. I
I
do watch
know.
the replays though. I love that we have that's a really great thing that they did, that they kept that open to you to just keep coming back on
I do
because
totally.
yeah, because you always can come up with more questions and just to be involved again with that community and that connection of people on a like-minded journey. And yeah, I love it. So
I know, it's huge. It
it is.
is.
It
Some of
is.
my favorite people, just, we're all in our blue blockers and, like, walk around barefoot. Like, yeah, we get each other.
We
Yeah,
do. We do.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this whole conversation was really lovely, and
Oh, thank
it
you.
was good for nourishing my soul, so I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. So, yeah.
Yeah, tell people I'm gonna link it, but how people can find you. I know
I
you're
most Yeah, I mostly spend my time on Instagram.
okay.
It's
Mhm.
just the easiest platform really that
It
I
really
understand.
is. Yeah, I know.
I
Yeah,
wanna get into some more, like, platforms that are more or less, less censored, but it's just like I gotta figure that out. But I'm on Instagram at bright_light_wellness, and then, my website is, brightlightwellnesscoach.com, so you can find me there, and,
yeah,
I have all kinds of stuff that you can look into, circadian biology sessions. Of course, I take classical homeopathy sessions, and I have coaching, and I have some courses you could do, even, like, courses for acutes, which I think is really great. Like, even if you want to learn how to do homeopathy on your own and treat acutes, that's really huge too, because
mhm,
again, instead of suppressing
yeah.
those ailments, we now uproot them with homeopathy instead. You just up level your health. So that's would be like a huge goal of mine. People stop taking antibiotics and start using homeopathy instead of at least give that a go first. So
Oh, yeah, that's huge. I think
yeah.
that's really important. So we'll make sure people find you and go find that. So thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you, Kelly.